I want this video to be for men and women, but more understanding men and the need to be vulnerable. Why that's so important with men. If you look at violence studies, you'll see the main perpetrators are men, whether it's sex trafficking, shootings, any kind of break-ins, any kind of road rage, bullying. It notoriously has more men engaging in those than women. And then you look at how we raise men in our society. What do? We tell them to suck it up, be a man, go, don't talk about it, just suppress it, just suck it in, just eat it, just zip your lip. And what that's done for us has a consequence for each and every one of us. For the first thing, it's not mentally healthy for men. And it's not healthy for relationships. Couples can't communicate well. They can't talk about feelings. They have a lot of trouble expressing themselves, but yet they have these bursts in other areas, bursts of rage, bursts of anger. When you hear about someone punching a hole in the wall, very rarely is that a woman. It can be, but most of the time it's men. And this is because society as a whole, and whether you did this raising your sons or you're dating someone who this happened to, it doesn't matter. It's a collective thing. We all have to work together. We all have to do better. Studies have shown how men have benefited from being able to express themselves. We call this the ability to be vulnerable. And if you think about it, it's so unfair. Women can be vulnerable. We talk to other women. We talk to professionals. It's expected. Oh, you feel so sad about that. Oh, your guy is in another country today. Oh, I bet you really miss him. But we don't give guys that same platform. In fact, we kind of avoid it. It's almost like we don't want to hear men expressing how they feel. But I'm telling you, more and more, we're not only going to help them express it, but unless we do, our lives and their lives are going to depend on it, because it's no accident that we're seeing more suicide in men. And a lot of that is because men are lonely, men are isolated, men are angry, and they don't know why. I'll tell you why. Because since that man was a little boy, we told him to grow up, to be a man, to not emote, to not cry. And we made it so men were fearful to do that. First of all, they were afraid of loss. They were afraid they'd look stupid. They were afraid of their peer group. They were afraid of being judged. And unless they're with someone who encourages that, it's going to be really hard, because you don't get over that. You basically are raised a certain way, and that's in your brain. And it's really hard to change and do something different. But to help motivate you, I'm going to go through a list of why it's so important that men can express themselves, be vulnerable, and be real about what they're feeling. Well, the first thing is it strengthens their mental health. This is a no-brainer. It helps guys when they express themselves, just like it does females. What is the best thing you can do when you're having a strong emotion? You can talk about it. You can feel it. You don't have to stuff it or numb it or deny it and then later go and do some violent act. Why do we have school shootings, or why do we have sex trafficking? We have it because we have one of the reasons we have it, we have no way guys can safely express how they're feeling. And even if they can, I get numerous clients who tell me, I don't know how to talk to him. Like, he doesn't open up. He doesn't know how to explain how he feels. How could he? How could he? You learned adjectives. You learned how to express yourself with safe people around you who encourage that. For the most part, men do not. And it starts very young, when all those expressive languages are really coming into formation, and when they really need to be in a safe place so they can talk about how they feel. Secondly, it really improves their relationships. When I see a couple, that couple is able to implement plans that I put in place, talk about the feeling, talk about what's going on, And if the guy is not able to do that, feels embarrassed for saying he feels really sad or he feels really rejected, then that's going to take 10 times longer in therapy for him to trust this safe place, this confidential place where he can go and be honest and really talk about what's on his heart and what's on his mind. Thirdly, it helps break the cycle. If you came from a chaotic family or a family with trauma or abuse, and you were raised to be a man and to suck it up and to numb it, then when you see that in your family now, you've co-created it with a dysfunctional partner because you chose someone not based on what you could express to them, but what seemed habitual, what seemed familiar to you. So you weren't really able to get the insight or the counseling you needed because you were so afraid to express yourself. When you get into the same scenario, you're not going to be able to talk about it. And because you may have a child, you may mentor for that child. Hey, to be a man means you're in denial, means you have to numb it, means you have to suck it up. If you feel you might be called a wimp or a sissy, think of all the terms, the derogatory terms we have used to describe men who tried to be vulnerable, who tried to express and share their feelings, and it will make chills go up you. So if you are with a man who you know had a lot of negative parenting, where he had to be stoic, he had to be brave, he had to just take it and suck it up, then you may want to really work hard at providing a safe place for that guy. So he knows it's a confidential place. You love him more when he can express himself, and nothing he says is going to be or appear too weak for you. Lastly, I think it really means a lot to mentoring for our children, mentoring for the community, that I am a man and this is what being a man means. When you cry, it is not a girly thing to do. It is a biological thing to do. Both men and women cry. But when you deny yourself being able to cry, now that's something all entirely different. You're shutting down a whole biological process that needs to be expressed. And if it's not expressed in a healthy way, it's going to be expressed in an unhealthy way. So guys, what can you do to get started? I think the most important thing is that you train your awareness to the triggers. What makes you feel bad? What brings an emotion, whether it's just sheer beauty, sheer joy, sheer sadness, or depression? What are you feeling? As much as you can, begin making lists. If sad is one of your feelings, think of the other adjectives. Do you feel worthless? Do you feel incapable? Do you feel rejected? Do you feel lonely? The more you make little lists of adjectives that possibly explain how you feel, the better you're going to be. Secondly, talk about your feelings. Begin talking about them in a mirror. It's less threatening. And the only thing you will see is your face emitting how it looks when you say what you're really feeling. It helps you become more self-aware of, this is who I am. And you're not going to be judged, or you don't have to fear being rejected if you say it in a mirror, because it's you. And the more you practice in front of a mirror, the stronger and more confident you'll get about being able to practice out there in the community, or someone really who is committed to you, who loves you, and that you're not worried is going to judge you. And lastly, consider speaking to a therapist. If you feel like you are so numb, so shut down, you've had to suck it in so much, you always feel on edge, you always feel anxious, you feel isolated, you feel alone, those are indicators that therapy is going to really help you. Find a therapist. Start online if that's less threatening for you. And then you can type. The more you start talking to someone who understands this, who gets what happened to you, the better you're going to be able to express yourself, not only to this therapist, but to other people. The more we can express how we feel, the closer we get to others, and that is going to free you from all these crazies, this anxiety, this depression, this sadness, feeling isolated, feeling alone, feeling like you don't fit. Most of those things I've just described are from holding feelings in, suppressing what you really think out of fear, out of possible rejection, out of possible being made fun of. And no one, especially a man, has to live that way for the rest of their life. If this video is helpful to you, please subscribe. And if you are a subscriber already, I want to say thank you. You mean the world to me.